coming up on the Business Spotlight Podcast. Thanks for being a guest, helping us kick off the new podcast on episode 1 here. Some people may or may not know, we've worked together for years.
Old-fashioned values, but
right.
They're my foundation.
Sometimes the truth hurts, right?
Absolutely.
You may not want to hear it.
And no one tells you, working with your business people, and no one's telling you, so you have someone like myself who will always be very candid.
Right.
Now you say, well, what can I do better? I could be better at designing. But you know what? I hate designing.
Right.
So it's not a strength of mine.
This is the Business Spotlight Podcast, presented by UCAS Studios. The Business Spotlight Podcast is for entertainment purposes only and should not be considered business or financial advice. Welcome and thanks for joining us for the Business Spotlight Podcast, where we feature some of the region's most prolific business owners, taking a deep dive into how they got started, what their clients are saying, and what's in store for the future. And if you would like to find out how to have your business featured on our podcast, all you have to do is get in touch. Just shoot us an email, info@ucasstudios.com. All right, our guest today is Stan Simpson, owner of Stan Simpson Enterprises, LLC in Bloomfield, Connecticut. Stan Simpson Enterprises specializes in strategic communications, public relations, writing, editing, and more, and has been in business since 2013. Stan Simpson, welcome to the podcast.
Jason, thank you. Honored to be on here.
Yeah, so thanks for being a guest, helping us kick off the new podcast on episode 1 here. So it's funny because, some people may or may not know, we've worked together for years. I was a behind the scenes guy helping you out with your show. And, it's cool to actually have you on and be on camera together.
You were the real VIP of the show, right?
But, and I think you're trying to look to get some of that stuff going again, right?
Right. What I'm doing is really taking my experience in media, in radio, TV, newspaper, and telling stories on air and now helping people tell those stories, nonprofits, school systems, corporations, individuals. So many folks have a hard time telling their stories. They aren't good storytellers. Not sure how to access media. So what I try and do is take my extensive experience on the air and media and helping them in shaping their message. Yeah, because you have years, you're a columnist at The Current. I mean, you've been in media really most or all of your career. So you have that experience that you can now bring to others and, help get the word out, help communities and organizations get that word out. So you're a consulting firm based right here in Bloomfield, Connecticut. This is your beautiful home office here. Tell us about what you do and how you actually got started. Sure. What I do, I develop strategic communications plan and then make sure they're spread across multiple platforms, digital, everything that people use, the streaming, to make sure that message resonates across the board. So how to get involved with it? When I left media or left print and radio 10 years ago, I went to the education field, education sector. And there there was a job there they created that was a grant funded job. So there were no benefits, nothing. It wasn't really it was a full-time job, but it was grant paid. So therefore there were none of the perks you would have if you're a full-time employee. So I said, let me go ahead and form a business. I said, I don't have a 401k, don't have any benefits. Someone suggested form your own business, and we kind of just started from there and started to grow. So that was the genesis of it. Work
from yourself, be your own boss.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of a double-edged sword because you have on one hand the autonomy to kind of go the direction you want to go, but it's also on you. You're not talking about something established, so you have to keep it propped up and you have to make sure that you're successful, and it's any business owner, I'm a business owner obviously as well. It's a tough thing to do. You're constantly, what's that next step? What's that next thing?
Right. And trying to satisfy clients and hope they stay for a long time. And so you're always grinding. Right.
So how specifically do you help these organizations that you provide the consultation to?
Well, the first thing, Jason, is to listen, right? You go in and have a meeting and say, hey, what is it you need? Whether you're a small business owner, whether you're a school system, whether you're a nonprofit, what exactly do you need? What's missing? It may be partnership building. It may be strategic writing, persuasive writing. A lot of folks can write, but they can't really write persuasively. So I learned that persuasive writing is an enormous skill set out there in the community. Folks are trying to convince people to either partner or to send money, and they need to be able to write in a way that can persuade people. So the first thing is, what do you need? Is it branding? Is it new clients, expansion, partnerships? And then based on what they need, design a plan that makes sense for them.
Right. So that's perfect. That leads in. So how exactly do you go about assessing what it is that specific client needs? How do you focus that for them?
Again, back to listening. If I'm talking to you, say, Jason, what are you looking to do with your business? How old is it? What are your challenges? What exactly do you think? Because no sense in me giving you my opinion. What is it you want for your business? And then once I know what you want, I can then value add. Okay, here's what we can do to help you reach that goal. And oh, by the way, you may want to think about this to help enhance what you're trying to do here. So the first thing is to really listen and to listen intently. And I think that's where being a journalist really comes in handy, because you have to listen. So listening it's a soft skill, but it's an enormous skill to have, to listen intently.
Right. The wisdom is the man that listens and doesn't just the man or woman that listens and doesn't just always talk.
Right.
You know, you can't hear if you're always
right. You can't present a plan to someone if you're not knowing what they want. Right. It can't be my plan. I mean, what do you want to do? Then we collaborate and go from there. Then.
Right, exactly. So, and sometimes maybe the start of it is helping, like they may not know what they want. You have to help them come to that.
Exactly.
Help them get it out of them. Maybe they know, but they have a hard time articulating it.
Exactly.
So that's maybe where you come in, right? So you help them articulate that.
Right. And if they're having a hard time articulating it to me, then they have a problem.
Right. Because they're not going to get it out to,
but I can take that and shape that. If they're having a hard time messaging to me, I can help simplify it and say, this is what you're trying to say. And then boom, use that message to help it resonate.
Make it more streamlined.
Right.
Because I always say, even with this, so this new podcast venture, you know, if I'm marketing to someone as a business owner, like, hey, we can do your podcast, it's going to be great. Well, I know that. But if I can't articulate it in a way that makes sense to you, I'm not going to get traction, because you're going to say, what is this? I don't understand this. And, you know, so yeah, you have to make it like simple and direct and streamlined, you know, and I think that's the challenge just as humans, us communicating. I think that's a big obstacle. Absolutely. So you have a unique motto. Mm-hmm. Your news is our business. Mm-hmm. That's a strong, definitive statement. So what inspired that?
Well, to give full credit, for full disclosure, my ex-wife came up with that motto for me a long time ago, and I just stuck with it. I thought it was a good logo. She'd also done some stuff in the media. I thought it really captured what I was doing, so I can't take credit for it. My ex-wife, that was her idea, and I stuck with it.
There you go. Well, I mean, it stands out. I hear that. I go, whoa, it stops me in my tracks. So I think that's good because, you know.
Well, I appreciate it.
You need to stand out. Absolutely.
You need a good motto, good strong motto, right?
You need a good strong motto. You know, it's a strong mission. People know exactly what your point is. So you're not just running a consulting firm. You have a mission. Is that right? So what's the overall mission that we're doing with this?
Well, I look at it too as a ministry. I don't know. I'm very selective in who I choose. If I'm not really passionate about what you're doing, I'll pass, maybe direct you to someplace else. I've got to be feel kind of a ministerial zeal about what you're doing, because if I'm not really passionate about it, I really can't help you. A lot of folks will tell you, hey, don't worry about the passion. Just take the checks that come in. I can't work that way. So if I'm not really passionate about what you're doing, then it won't work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can just share personally for the parent company for Lucid Productions, which, you know, we're under. That's what we, you know, I'm fortunate to be at the point where I don't have to just take every job now because, like you said, take the check. I can be selective and say, you know, I really like what this company stands for. I really like these values. I really like the result that they're getting, how they're engaged in their community. That's who I want to work with. Because at the end of the day, we want to align, you know, our values with who we're working with. It's, you know, I don't want that money that doesn't align with what I value, you know?
That's a good point.
You can't feel good about that.
Right. I want to like the people who I work with as well. Right. If I don't really feel that there's a good chemistry there, then also I'll pass.
Right. You want to find those that you see what they're doing and you say, hey, here's a way I can support you, you know, how we can support each other. So I think that's very important. I think that's something that gets missed in business in general, is that making it all about monetary. And if you're taking the right steps, if you're doing the right things, if you're doing things with integrity, the money will come.
Integrity is a big thing. Integrity and honesty, they're old-fashioned values, but they're my foundation, right? You got to be able, people have to see integrity and they'll see it, and you have to be able to talk to them candidly, right? There's no sense seeing something that's a problem and no one's telling them that. They've got to know that you're going to tell them what you see as the truth, whether they want to hear it or not. And that's what they're paying for as well. You're paying for candor. And a lot of people don't want to hear candor.
So that's a good point. Sometimes the truth hurts, right? Absolutely. You may not want to hear it.
And no one tells you. You're working with your business people and no one's telling you. So you someone like myself who will always be very candid.
Right. But that in the short term, it stings. But in the long run, a lot of people, I'm sure you have people come back to you and say, man, I resisted it, but you were right. This is how I was able to grow my business. A lot of times in my business, when you're working with clients, you have to say, well, that's maybe not the most marketable message, or, you know, you may want to tweak it this way. And, you know, we kind of fall in love with our brainchild. There's a little pushback, but at the end of the day, am I really doing what you hired me to do?
Right.
If I'm just telling you what you want to hear.
And, you know, the word tweak is a good word. I use that word a lot because it takes away the ego out of their idea, what they're saying. You may want to tweak. You may want to think about. But my key is when I want to change. You may want to think about this. That's my code to say. Right. You need to go this direction.
Right. You may just want to consider another point of view.
Yeah, because sometimes you dictate to someone. Sometimes folks have their ego. They want to be dictated to. You kind of suggest here that you go and then have them buy in. That's a better way to do it.
Yeah, because it's you have to learn to put that little sugar on top, right? You catch a little more flies with honey than with vinegar. Even if it needs to be said, it's, again, how things are articulated that makes all the difference.
You can't say, man, that's a horrible idea. Let me tell you what you
Right. You know, you're dead in the water, then we're not being productive anymore. So that's a very good point. And great. So this is the Business Spotlight podcast presented by UCAS Studios. We're speaking with Stan Simpson, owner of Stan Simpson Enterprise in Bloomfield, Connecticut. So you're not just running a consulting firm, as we said, you're on a mission. You've been around for about a decade now. You've successfully partnered with many organizations. I mean, where do you go from here? Like, what's the next steps? What's the future?
Well, I think two things. Three things. One, corporations, which I always saw corporations as sort of boring entities who I wouldn't want to connect with. But a lot of them now want to connect with the community. They want to do things that are really community centric. They want to do things that show their heart and their commitment to the community, but they don't know how to do it. So I like to work with corporations who are looking to expand their community base and do some things with the community. I want to partner with some other businesses. I mean, I'm not a designer, so I don't like doing design. It's not a strength area. Right. So I want to find some more strategic partners for my business. So, go out and get some bigger fish out there because I'm partnering with the right people. And then also interesting to me is the cannabis industry. I'm very intrigued by the cannabis industry, more from a research end and what they're finding cannabis can do. And you see how hyper competitive the market is, both from the research side and the residential side, just the recreational side, not residential. But I'm more interested in the medical cannabis field because it's so competitive. They're finding some great things there. And I also sense that because it's so competitive, you're going to have to really sharpen your communications to be on top of the field. So that field really intrigues me. So cannabis, corporations, and more strategic partnerships for my business.
And any kind of new emerging market. It's one of the, if not the biggest emerging market in the world. And years before there was any kind of legalization, people always said, man, what an industry that would be if that was legal. Here we are, fast forward, right? Really, it's been a couple of years now that we've been there, but it's only going to get bigger.
Yeah, it's $1 billion industry.
And the strategic partnerships, that's a very interesting point because, in my business, I have things I'm really good at. I'm very good at video editing. I'm very good at writing. Not a salesman. That's just not who I am, right? So I've often said you have to take whatever and I can't take credit and make it up, but you have to follow the creed that you have to take whatever your weakness is and find someone who that's their strength.
Right. Exactly.
You have to build a team. The strength of that team and you supporting each other, that's when the magic happens. That's when it all clicks. And I think we've all been in situations where we've dealt with business owners that can't get out of that silo. That this is the way I've always done it. This is what works. I've always worn every hat, all that whole line of thinking. And you can never grow that way. Right. And what ends up is you're always stressed. You're master or jack of all trades, master of none. You never quite get there to that next step. So I think that's a very important. I mean, I don't know how do you even move forward with the business without strategic partners? That might be one of the most important things,
Absolutely. I think the really good CEOs are really excellent managers. They're delegators. They form that good team. Right. Get really good people. And then you let them go to work and do their thing and you manage the process. Right. It's like being in the real estate, right? You don't want to be the person who's, pounding the nail and fixing the porch and managing the property. Get good people who can, your plumber, your electrician, your carpenter. You manage the process, and those are the folks who can then scale, right? When you do that, then you can scale your business.
Because there's trust. You have to really be able to trust them. And that's the hardest thing as business owners, especially. We built this baby from nothing. It's hard to trust and say, okay, you got this. It's very hard to do. And you do need to be very selective because not everyone is equipped, just like any job interview. Not everyone's equipped for that position. Right. That's why you interview. But once you can get those people around you that you trust, that's when you can free yourself to be more operations and really let those people carry that torch. It's very important.
Right. Because you have corporate models where they'll hire people, then they're threatened by them. There's the corporate culture where they'll hire someone, they'll hire Jason. Now they'll see their resume and all of a sudden they're threatened by Jason taking their job rather than embracing Jason to help the company grow. They're threatened. You may end up taking their job. And so there's that corporate, that's where I think being an entrepreneur is different than that corporate culture. And obviously, not every corporation is that way, but you hear stories of folks who are threatened by so-and-so. They may get more shine on them.
It becomes adversarial versus collaborative.
Right, exactly.
And to circle back, you're talking about corporations. One point I wanted to mention is a very good point now is we generally think of corporations as heartless but we're starting to see a culture where corporations are kind of taking a stand and getting behind certain values and getting behind communities. Yes. And, if we talk a little bit about that, I think that's kind of the corporations you're looking to partner with.
Absolutely. Those folks who make the profit margin is huge. They realize that a good corporate partner gets involved in their community. And also it's good for business. When folks know you care, if you're pick a big company. I won't name any out there, but pick a big company. If they know you're not just about selling claims and insurance, but you're also about community and growing a community, that helps your business. Right.
It all just falls into place. If you do the right thing, things do fall into place in time. So kind of what we're talking about, expanding while remaining selective, that's definitely a fine line. You're definitely walking a tightrope. So how do you navigate that delicate balance of I need to grow, but I have to be selective and I can't just, be willy-nilly about it? Yeah,
again, it's back to what intrigues me. And if it doesn't intrigue me, can you make it intrigue me, right? You may say, let's go out for lunch. I want to tell you about my business. We talk. I'm not intrigued at first, but now I'm talking to you and I'm like, okay, this is a pretty good business.
Right.
I see where there's a good angle. I see where the mission is strong. I see where the integrity is strong. And now I'm intrigued and now I'm excited. So I want to partner with you because I hadn't thought about this.
Right.
So it really is just for me, what you're passionate about or what someone can compel you to be compassionate about.
Right. So even just taking a moment just to look a little below the surface, right? That first impression that we get sometime. Because remember, if you're consulting them, maybe it's because their first impression isn't refined. So you have to be able to look beyond that and say, okay, what's below the surface here? Okay, now how do we help you, again, articulate that to those that you're looking to do business with? So I think that's a very good point.
It's really clarity of message. As you were saying before, if you can't articulate your message in a clear way, that's your first problem for business, right? So how do you make it where it's clear and then it's compelling, right? Where people want to say, hey, love that message. I want to partner with you. I want to buy your product. And so that's a gift. That's a skill set.
It's its own skill set.
Yeah. Writing is an enormous, I see a lot of writing, a lot of bad writing and things that I do. And so writing and, again, persuasive writing is a tremendous skill set. Not everyone has it.
Right.
And it's a value. And when you can improve someone's content and they see it, like, wow, this is what I'm trying to say, then boom, you have it. Now you just spread it across the various platforms, all the different platforms out there. I don't understand them all, quite frankly, but I know that
it keeps changing.
If you have good content, you can just spread them across those platforms.
It translates to moving target.
Content. You be content oriented. I'm really content oriented. You have great content, then you just spread it across all those platforms.
At the end of the day, and we strip away the bells and whistles, what's really there at the core of it.
Right.
And that's what people connect with.
Right. And you got to tweak it accordingly. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever platform, newspaper, radio, it's got to be tweaked. But as long as your message is strong, it doesn't matter just tweaking it accordingly to the platform.
And what's funny? It's something that I kind of take for granted because my business itself in the production company, writing is one of the things that we do. So that comes natural. So we can, write copy and do things that you look at other business owners and that doesn't come naturally. Right. So they may know what they want to do, but that pen to paper, there's a disconnect there.
Absolutely.
So that's a very...
And the good one to realize they have a problem. The ones who... The trouble is when you don't realize you have a problem with your writing. It's always great when a CEO knows, okay, we need to strengthen our writing. So that's the good sign that they're ready to grow. A lot of times folks don't see it. They think they're writing well and they're not.
Well, they always say with any problem, the first step is admitting you got a problem.
Absolutely.
You can't solve something that you won't acknowledge exists. So, so next, tell us about your clients. And I mean, who they are, but what are their goals? What do they stand for?
Again, we have, I'll give some names, Bloomfield Public Schools. I work with Harvard Public Schools. I work with Jamoke Academy. I worked with CRT. I worked with the Hartford Jazz Festival. WTIC Radio, Fox 61.
Very established organizations.
The goals are different. Some of them want really good writing. Some of them want to have partnership building. Some are trying to increase their branding and their partnership. So everyone is different. So that's what back to the whole listing. What do they need? They may just need content, good stories, storytelling. Someone else may need broader scale branding. If you're the Great Harvard Jazz Fest and you try and get sponsorship, I mean, they base their whole thing. Sponsorships are huge. So for them, they need to get sponsors in. How do you get sponsors in? By telling them, here's an event that attracts 100,000 over a weekend, diverse array. You got to be able to compel them. Why should I have my brand attached to this event? Here's why. And so that's the secret sauce and how to do that in a way that makes sense for whoever's saying, yeah.
I was going to say, you got to tell them a way that makes sense. You know, it has to really make sense.
And that they want to be attached to it.
Right. I think consumers are more savvy, businesses are more savvy. So the old approaches, you know, in the 80s and 90s, a lot of the very linear type of advertising we saw, that stuff doesn't work anymore. You know, people, you know, if you notice, you don't really see infomercials like you used to.
Right.
Because the come on down, set it and forget it, that just doesn't work anymore. Right. You have to give value. You got to come out of the gate with value. Just like this right here. I need to show people that we can put a podcast together. I can't just say, trust me, it's going to be good. They say, put your money where your mouth is. Let me see a link. You know, that's the world we live in. It's real time.
Show me a pilot, right? Show me a pilot.
Give me a QR code right now. I want to see what you're talking about. So it's a different world we're living in. So there's a lot of consulting firms out there. What sets your firm apart? And how do you just knock it out of the park for your clients?
Well, I think character, integrity, honesty, and I think being able to deliver high-level content. I think when you deliver excellent content, when your client can get a hold of you any time of the day, I don't have set hours. You're a client, you can call me at 10 p.m., 11, 6 in the morning if you're a client. You know, you're part of it, you can call me. I'm not. And I think just being empathetic and wanting to see their business, being authentic, and then giving that really good content. Right. That's the key for me, is be able to deliver where they can never deny, and the content was strong.
Right. So just being there for them and supporting them.
Excellent.
Excellence. That's a really good word for it.
Excellence in your work. Right. Like with your podcast, you want to be able to show them a signature podcast. Say, hey, here's what I'm going to do. Here's what I can do. And tell their friends. When you give them excellence, they tell their friends. And it just organically grows. And I think for me personally, it's always about okay, what can we do better? Even if it is excellent, it would be almost impossible to ever be in a situation where you say, there's nothing I can improve. Right. So we even taped a podcast yesterday. I reviewed everything and I identified 1-2 little things and said, you know, I'm going to do that differently tomorrow. Yeah. Because we have a standard for excellence. We're not just, that's good enough, you know. And that's where the partnership building that I talked about earlier. Because sometimes you say, well, what can I do better? I could be better at designing. But you know what? I hate designing. Right. So it's not a strength of mine. So why try to make it a strength? Why not go ahead and partner with someone who has that as a strength, and we just collaborate? Because
as a business owner, the actual most valuable asset you have is your time.
Yes.
So if you take 3 times as long to get this designing done, well, what are you not able to do? You know, what are you not able to oversee? Take that time, you know, get it off your plate, give it to someone who will just probably run circles around what you would have did in a third of the time. Right. And now you're free to run your business, to do outreach, to, be in the community more, just to engage your clients more.
Absolutely.
You know, that's efficiency, and you can't run business without efficiency. So
maybe a poor example, like cutting your yard, right? Some folks cut their yard, some folks farm it out. Right. I don't like cutting my yard. You know, I'd rather, much as I like to think I would, I've bought lawnmowers, whatever, and I don't like doing it. The time I'm doing it, I think it's wasted time for me. I could be doing more things that I like to do, and so farm it out.
Yeah. You can be figuring out your next move, you know, instead of sweating out there in the summer, cutting the grass.
Or in the beach somewhere. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Somewhere a little more comfortable. So as the old saying goes, you know, what's the moral of the story? So if nothing else from today's interview, what would you want our viewers and our listeners to take away from this interview? People that are either thinking of working with you or just, general message.
Yeah, if you're looking to expand your business, if you're looking to really sharpen your brand, if you're looking for strong writing, and even, Jason, when you talk about crisis communication, something I really love is working on crisis. If you have those needs, think about me.
Okay, great. So just let people know how they can specifically get in touch with you.
Sure. www.StanSimpsonEnterprises.com. And there's also an email on that website, stan@StanSimpsonEnterprises.com, or I'm on Facebook and Twitter, or I'm easy to find, folks. So
the normal places, the usual suspects, you're there.
I'm there.
Stan Simpson, owner of Stan Simpson Enterprises in Bloomfield, Connecticut. Thanks for being on the podcast today. And remember, if you would like to have your business featured on the podcast, all you have to do is get in touch. Just shoot us an email, info@ucaststudios.com. That'll do it for this episode of Business Spotlight Podcast, presented by UCast Studios. Thank you again to our very first guest, Stan Simpson. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, Jay.
All right. You've been listening to the Business Spotlight Podcast.